Hello friends, I am Kartik. Today in this video, I will be discussing the theory of demand. So, what is demand? Demand means nothing but desire. But in economics, demand means desire backed by the purchasing power and the willingness to pay the price. So, there is a law of demand which states that when the price of a commodity rises, the demand will decrease, and when the price of a commodity falls, the demand will increase. So there is a demand schedule which shows the various quantities of goods that are demanded at various levels of prices in the market. So there are two types of demand schedules: individual demand schedule, market demand schedule. Individual demand schedule shows various quantities of goods that are demanded by a consumer at various levels in the levels of prices in the market. Market demand schedule shows various quantities of goods that are demanded by all the consumers in the market at various levels of prices. When we add up the individual demand schedule, we can get the market demand schedule. Next topic is exceptions to the law of demand. We have some cases where the law of demand does not apply. The first case is Giffen paradox. Sir Robert Giffen, a British economist, saw that when the low paid workers in London purchased more of the bread when its price was high, but when the price was low, they purchased low bread. So that's why this theory is known as the Giffen paradox. Next is speculation. Speculation means when a consumer thinks that the price of a certain commodity is going to increase in the near future, he is going to purchase more quantity of the commodity than he did at the lower price. Now, conspicuous goods. Conspicuous goods means those goods which are purchased to expose the luxury or prestige of a person in the society. Examples of luxury items are expensive cars, diamonds, jewelry, and etc. Share market. In case of share markets, people purchase the shares of those companies whose prices are rising and are expected to rise in the near future. Similarly, they will purchase less shares of those companies whose prices are falling and are expected to fall in the near future. Next is illusion. Illusion means a false image which has been established in the brains of the consumers. So some of them think that the prices of those commodities are high because the quality of those goods are also high, so they purchase only those high priced goods. They think that when the price of those high priced goods falls, the quality of those goods has also deteriorated, but it is wrong. Next, we have a demand function, which is the functional relationship between the determinants of the demand. What are the determinants of the demand? Determinants means those factors or those things which have an impact upon the demand of a commodity. We have number of demand determinants, so they are price of a commodity. In this point, we will discuss that the price of a commodity depends or it impacts upon the demand for a commodity. If the price is high, the demand will decrease, and if the price is low, the demand will increase. Next is price of substitute goods. In case of substitute goods, we should learn with an example. Now the example is that we have two goods, for example X and Y. If the price of X increases relatively, then the people will purchase less of commodity X, which has now been very costly. Then they will purchase the commodity Y, which is now relatively cheaper because the Y is now cheaper than X. So next is price of complementary goods. In case of complementary goods, the price depends upon the price of the complementary good. If the price of the goods increases, the demand for the complementary good decreases. They are inversely related. Now it is the income of the consumer. Now if the income of the consumer increases, the demand for the commodity or the quantity demanded by the consumers will increase. If the income of the consumer decreases, the quantity purchased by them will also decrease because they will have less money to spend upon the things. Now tastes of the consumers. Tastes also depend or they determine the demand for a commodity. So if there is a change in the tastes, then there will be a change in the demand. Now next is population. When or where the population is more, the demand for a commodity will be more. When the population is low or less, the demand will also be less. Climate. When in case of a winter season, the people will demand woolen clothes, sweaters, hats, coats, etc. But in case of rainy season, people will demand umbrellas, rain boots, raincoats, such like that. So when the climate changes, the demand for the commodities also changes. Now, types of demands. There are three types of demands: price demand, income demand, and cross demand. Price demand explains the relationship between price of a commodity and demand for the commodity. Income demand explains the relationship between income of a consumer and the demand for the commodity. Now, cross demand explains the relationship between price for a commodity and the demand for its complementary goods. Okay, so after this we will discuss change in demand and change in quantity demand. So when all other things are constant, if a change in price leads to change in demand, these type of changes are said to be extension and contraction of demand. In case of this, when the price rises, the demand is contracted. When the price falls, the demand is extended. So next is increase and decrease in demand. When the price is constant, if there is a change in the determinants of demand, then these type of changes are said to be increase and decrease of demand. So when there is an increase in the demand, the new demand curve will form to the right of the old demand curve. When there is a fall or decrease in the demand, then the new demand curve will form towards the left of the old demand curve. Now, next topic is elasticity. What do you mean by elasticity? Elasticity means nothing but the sensitiveness or the responsiveness of a commodity towards the demand for the commodity. So there are basically three types of demands: price elasticity demand, income elasticity demand, and cross elasticity of demand. So in case of price elasticity, this explains the proportionate change in the price and the proportionate change in the demand. It means how much change in price leads to how much change in demand. So in this there are again 5 types: relatively elastic demand, relatively inelastic demand, perfectly elastic demand, perfectly inelastic demand, and unitary elastic demand. Perfectly elastic demand means the proportionate when the in this case when there is a slight change in demand, there is an infinite change in the when there is a slight change in price, there is an infinite change in the demand. So this is known as perfectly elastic demand. Perfectly inelastic demand, in this case the price changes but there is no change in the demand. So next is relatively elastic demand. When the proportionate change in demand is more than proportionate change in the price, it is said to be relatively elastic. Relatively inelastic demand, when the proportionate change in demand is less than the proportionate change in price, it is said to be relatively inelastic demand. Unitary elastic demand, in this case the proportionate change in demand and proportionate change in price are equal. Next is income elasticity of demand. Income elasticity of demand also has the same 5 types and the explanation is also the similar kind. So I am skipping this. Next is cross demand. In case of cross demand, it explains the proportionate change in price for a commodity and the proportionate change of demand for the same commodity, for the complementary goods actually. So these two are inversely related. It means for a particular commodity, if its price increases, the demand for its complementary goods decreases. This is the explanation of the cross elasticity of demand. Next, we have various measures to calculate the actual change in the elasticity of demand. There are actually 4 methods: point method, percentage method, total expenditure method, and arc method. So with this I am ending this video over here. Thank you.
Ending